This is second episode of the Sage Session. I have today not a fitness person, but a great man on his own, man. Somebody I've been watching. I've been low key, kind of stalking. I guess it's cool to admit that on air while he's hearing me. Low key stalking, checking him out, seeing how he is, and I'm actually glad to have this guy with me on a one-on-one interview session with me today. That's right, boys and girls. I have NC from TWRP. Let's give a quick applause for him right here. My brother, how's it going? How you feeling?
Good, man. Good. You know what? I wouldn't think of what you're doing as weird. I mean, it is creepy, but it's sincere. And
Mm,
sincerity is something I appreciate. So thank you.
I like that. Creepy but sincere. You see that? He gave me an insult, but he kind of coded it nice with that sincere. I like it. This is gonna be a great pod, man. I'm still thinking about our little 20-minute thing that we had at the last minute of Politishock. How like I was like everything you said was just so on point, and I was like, man, I wish I had him on the podcast when I was talking about dreamers and achievers, because you were just hitting all the targets. So as I had to shoot my shot to get that to get this interview going. So once again, I just want to thank you again for coming on here, man. I know California is kind of, crazy over there. So, it's always busy and stuff, but we're gonna get rolling. We're gonna get things flowing on here. So for those of you guys that don't know, like a little bit of me a month ago about NC, him and his brother, right? That's your brother, JC.
Yes.
They own their own wrestling podcast and channel on YouTube and Patreon. They're actually the heart of the internet wrestling community. I'm coming to learn. And it's been actually looking at watching you guys' success story and watching your videos. It gets me pumped and it gets me hyped that you guys started the Patreon and YouTube. I'm assuming around the same time, or was Patreon first or YouTube first?
We started doing YouTube first, and when we started doing it, it was very, very low grade. We just did not give a shit about high technology. I had like the shittiest of laptops running Windows 7, and straight up, like even to
Yeah.
this day, I recorded off my cell phone. But I didn't have like a decent cell phone that I had now. I had an iPhone 4, and what
Ooh.
I would have to do is I would have to take those audio files, put a picture on them, and then I would pop them up and make it a video. I wouldn't cut out any of the background sound. It was very raw, very uncut. And then as we started putting out more videos, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of the fan going in the background. I'm tired of all this background noise. I'm tired of the static. I'm just tired of it sounding unprofessional. So I started learning more about how to encode audio. Eventually got into video editing, picture editing, all of that. So I got to say that being a part of YouTube and getting started on YouTube first really helped me learn how to do everything that you have to do to be a YouTuber. So that was very helpful. We started doing the Patreon probably about a year and a half ago. And it was just because we were noticing that we had a pretty dedicated fan base. And not only that, but we were currently going through some issues with YouTube where they were pulling a lot of our videos for cyberbullying and harassment.
Mm,
Pretty much they were going after the top 10 sucks range of videos and anything having to do with that, and they were trying to
yeah.
pull them for anything. So after the second strike to the main channel, I went ahead and made a judgment call, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pull all of the sucks videos, all the roast videos, tear down videos, anything inflammatory where we just really rip the shit out of a wrestler. I decided, you know what? I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to take this off the channel, and I'm going to find another way for the fans to watch this content, just not on YouTube. So me and my brother got to talking. We decided on Patreon. Eventually came to even working that along with Teespring too to sell our merchandise. And we were like, you know what? If they're going to try to take us out, at least let's give something to our fan base and connect with them more. And that's what I've been able to do with Patreon. And the whole thing I started to do with Patreon is I would put the top 10 sucks videos on there, but I would put them up like a week earlier than what you would see on our side channel. So I still have them
Mm,
available for the fans. They can go on TWRP MISC. That's our
yeah.
backup channel on YouTube. They can go on there and they can check out the top 10 sucks, but they just got to wait a little bit. Like, for instance, today, I put out a top 10 sucks on Firefly Funhouse on Patreon, so they can go and check that out today, or they can wait till Monday and check it out on TWRP MISC.
That's actually very interesting. I know a podcaster named Joe Budden. He's actually a failed rapper. But
Yeah.
he actually does his thing on Patreon as well. And what he'll do is that he'll put it up on Patreon, and then like a week later, he'll do exactly what you guys do. But instead of putting it on his secondary account, he'll put it on his main account, and then he'll like scrub out. You know, he has all that fancy stuff, so he scrubs out all the copyrighted music. He scrubs out all the stuff that YouTube hates, and then he makes it YouTube friendly. So I like that idea. Actually, I think that's very interesting how you're basically still like you're basically playing with the YouTube algorithm with the secondary channel,
Yes.
you know? So I like that. I like that a lot. And it actually came into my first question I had for you saying since you started in 2018, compare that to now, how has the internet game, you know, for creators changed? And would you think it's easier to start would you have thought would it be easier to start the internet game back in 2018, or is it twice as hard now in 2020?
Well, it's a double edged sword because the software is a lot better, and the
Hmm.
techniques, like the video creators out there, the picture creators, audio editors, all that is a lot more user friendly than it was back in 2013 or 2015. So while it was more of a wild west back then, you could get away with a lot more back in the mid 2000 teens. Nowadays it's a lot more controlled, and a lot of that started when Susan Wojcicki stepped in as the YouTube CEO. Ever since
Hmm.
she stepped into that role, you started seeing a drastic change in the landscape of YouTube, and pretty much an attack on the creators. She was the one CEO that I felt really made the backbone of her company feel like garbage by the fact that she would go after them over the cyberbullying and harassment BS, by the fact that she would really look to demonetize a lot of creators. I mean, she really went out of her way to cut down monetization. Like the monetization we were getting back in 2019 was actually pretty decent, and it's been drastically chopped down over time, even though we're getting more fans. So it's just one of those things you have to deal with, and you kind of have to work around it. You could still make profit off of YouTube. Pretty much the best way right now that we have profit is through super chats. So what we'll do is we'll put on a live stream, hook it up through Haps and Twitch, and
Hmm.
we'll also stream it off of YouTube, and we'll allow people to donate through Super Chat, and there they can ask a question, make a statement, whatever they want to do, and we'll acknowledge them on the broadcast. So it's a way for the fans to interact and be heard on the show, and also for us, to actually make some money off of this, because YouTube has done a lot to cripple the creator, and I would hope that it would change in due time, but we'll see what happens.
Would you say it's just YouTube that's crippling the creators? Like, you know, I'm seeing Twitch is bumping their TOSs. Facebook has always been the quarterback of this whole thing. Even now, but I've actually been hearing a lot of rumors about Discord even starting to get more PC
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So I feel like the move is moving more towards everywhere, you know? And I feel like, and I have no idea what super chats, by the way. Is that like a website? Is
No, what a super chat is it's a part of the YouTube experience. Like, let's say you're watching a live stream video on YouTube, and you're part of the live chat. And as part of super chat, what you can do is you can choose to add a donation, and then make a statement, make a request, whatever, and it will pop up on screen on the broadcast. And then usually the creator acknowledges it and talks about it.
Oh, okay. So I can implement that even through, let's say, hypothetically, VOP, right? It's like the
You
VOP
could,
mode.
yeah.
Oh, all right. That's something I didn't know. That's actually really, really freaking awesome. And you spoke about your monetization, and it was majority of your top 10 sucks, right? So have you found out a way to like in those videos, like sort of put them out there, but like, you know, like again, like how you're working the algorithm through Patreon. Have you found like any other loopholes in that algorithm game?
Well, I've learned a lot about the YouTube algorithm game, especially in the last 6 months. And one thing I usually will do is for TWR News, I use a lot of different clips. So I have to go ahead and I have to check to see if a lot of these clips go ahead and get, checked for monetization, or they get what is it? They get some sort of copyright strike or something on them. I have to make sure that everything rolls through perfectly. So a lot of times, what I'll have to do is I'll have to take pieces of a video, upload them separately as drafts, see if they even get hit for any copyright strikes, and then compile them into a video. I usually have to do that for like the intros, outros, anything that has footage from a movie, music, video game, whatever. I usually try to cover all my bases in that aspect. I learned that whenever you're using a clip of a video, try not to go any longer than 20 seconds. Usually I try to do max 15. It used to be 30. Now it's 15. And in order to do that, you have to do it spliced up so that it's like some of your talking mixed with some of the video footage and back and forth in order to not get that copyright strike. I've learned that you can't have any hardcore cussing within the first 30 seconds of your video, because that's when the algorithm first catches up on you. And then after that, it kind of lays back. So after 30 seconds is pretty much the golden rule for any videos that you're uploading. Just pretty much make a safe intro, and then from there, rip into whatever you need to.
No, I like that. I love that so much because as you know, in the VOP, us and YouTube, we got beef. They don't like us. And I was doing the Iron Lungs. What was it, Landon? It was last week we did it when I did the highlights for Game 3. Yeah, right. I did the highlights for Game 4, and it was all like the NBA Finals, which is broadcast on TV and all that stuff. And it wasn't like whole games; it was clip highlights, And then we got striked for that really hard, and I didn't understand that at all because I thought I was in fair game, because that's stuff that's on TV. Like literally, some of the stuff was from Fox News, so
Right,
I'm like, these are Fox Sports highlights. So I know I got Fox. I know my dad has Fox, and my dad doesn't have cable. You
right.
know, so there's no way how this is a problem. So like that was majority. That second part was just a selfish question. I just needed to know what was going on because YouTube just hates the crap out of me and whatever I put out. So
Well, it just all depends. If you are more of a person like a creator who has a lot of clips in their work, you're gonna get hit up more than often by YouTube. And this is something that not only happens to you; it happens to a lot of people in the wrestling community. Like I have a lot of creator friends who have been hit up by these strikes left and right because they have clips, and they just have to learn, like me, how to work around it and how to maneuver around it, especially if you're a YouTube creator. However, on Haps, as much as we bag on them, they do have more leniency when it
yeah,
comes to playing whatever the hell you want to play. Like I've seen a lot of creators on here play full on UFC fights, MMA, boxing, football, pro
wow,
wrestling, and all that, and not get flagged. So it
wow.
does have a little bit more leniency on here, but YouTube is a completely different monster. I'm honestly feeling like YouTube is more friendly towards people who are podcasters nowadays than video makers.
Yeah, I and I feel like that's what the world is leading towards now, right? Podcasting is becoming the new thing. Like podcasting wasn't what it was. Like when I first heard of podcasting in 2000, it was like dude sitting down giving you top 10, how to better your life. And then,
Right.
it was nothing of what I see now, like if now I'm more into podcasting, like, VOP, TWRP, Joe Budden, Joe Rogan. I'm even dipping into underground podcasting, which is really annoying. But so I feel like podcasting is kind of really taking over the world as of right now, like how music used to. Like, back then everybody wanted to be a rapper, right?
Right.
That was such the big thing. And then when Space Jam came out, everybody wanted to be Michael Jordan. And, so I feel like right now podcasting is taking that new wave
Well,
of stardom. Yeah.
I think that people have just realized just how convenient podcasting is, just because now more than ever, I think a lot of people are on the go and they want something to entertain them, and they're pretty much bored of a lot of the music out there, because I got to say a lot of mainstream music is just garbage. So they want something interesting that they can get into. And a lot of times when they're at work, this is the big thing. This is where, my opinion, podcasts really thrive, is when people are at work and they're fucking bored and they need to pass by the hours. So they'll just plug in their earbuds, hide them with a hoodie, and just do whatever they need to do, pass the time away, and enjoy a couple hour long podcasts. And I think that that's why podcasting is especially booming, because it's so user friendly. You can take it anywhere. It's worldwide. It's pretty much universal. And
Hmm.
especially with the advent of satellite radio, it's something that I think can really translate a lot farther than just this planet. I think it has a lot of good implications.
Yeah, I honestly I didn't see it that way either. How people just use that as a regular thing, just for work and stuff like that. Because honestly, that's what I do. Like I catch up to all my podcasting while I'm honestly running and working out. And well, I wasn't when I was working because I didn't have a break. And when you work at fast food, you kind of don't have that luxury.
Right.
But so I definitely feel that. Another thing I wanted to ask you is actually something I've been actually doing my little research on. The IWC has been, I would arguably say, one of the biggest internet communities, and I would say longest, you know, in right now. Right? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, it's been around since about 99,
Yeah,
98.
that's like what? Uh, YouTube wasn't even around then. Like we're talking the golden, not even the golden age, the novice years of AOL. I think that was AOL, right? That was AOL dial-up years.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so it was around there. It's been really big. I can only think honestly the only community that's probably bigger than that will have to be probably the Pokemon community. Um, but it there's this big problem now with the IWC that I've been realizing with a lot of people. They've been actually bashing it and hating it, and I have actually some things they say that the community is now toxic, very judgmental, and filled with bigots and morons. So, seeing as TWRP is literally in the heart of the IWC, what's your thoughts on that?
I think that everybody has an opinion nowadays, and more so than ever, those opinions are very sensitive. And I think that a lot of the current IWC do not have the backbone that the beginning of the IWC had. I think a lot of them are very soft skinned. I think a lot of them do not know how to take an insult. I think a lot of them take things way too seriously on the internet, especially for a kid show that airs at night. I think that a lot of the fan base nowadays is incredibly psychotic, and that's why we're, don't get me wrong, we're wrestling fans still, but we're very much like very laid back wrestling fans. We maybe only
Yeah.
watch it twice a week. Like for this week, we're watching it twice a week. We did NXT Sucks Live, and we're going to do Money in the Bank tomorrow. So
Okay.
usually we don't do that. Usually it's once a week at the very most, and it's one show that's 2 hours long. We have really not kept up with wrestling. For the news, we just read it off a website, check out a couple clips. We do not watch it anymore. But we do have to say that, we are unfortunately part of that community that started up a lot of negativity towards pro wrestling. Now, the negativity that we're putting out about pro wrestling is all constructive criticism, depending on how you perceive it. Some people take it to the extreme, though, some of our creator friends, and they really attack wrestlers. And don't get me wrong, with our top 10 sucks, we attack wrestlers too. But part of that attacking process that we've always stated is we're trying to take that list that we're giving them of reasons why they suck, and we're trying to give them top 10 reasons they can do to improve themselves. It's a very tough love that we're giving these pro wrestlers, and a lot of people just don't see it like that. They think that we're trying to go after these wrestlers and ruin their lives and all that. No, more than anything, what we want is we want wrestling to be better. We want it to be watchable again. We want it to be the point where you can watch it with your family and not be embarrassed. And that's the biggest problem about modern day pro wrestling. It doesn't matter what company you watch, AEW, WWE, whatever. Whatever company you're watching, it's going to be absolutely embarrassing to whatever person who doesn't usually watch pro wrestling if they're around you. They're going to think it's embarrassing. And it's to the point where you can't even talk about it anymore. You can't wear a t-shirt out in public anymore without somebody snickering at you, or thinking that you're a fag because you're wearing a pro wrestling shirt. And it's sad. It's sad that
Hmm.
something that
Yeah.
I grew up with, that I started watching when I was 5 years old, it's been a part of my life for a long time. Something like that has just evolved into being a late night kid show for feminists and SJWs. And it's terrible because it's brought in those fans, and in turn it's driven the numbers into the toilet. It's to the point where most wrestling shows get barely over 1 million people. They used to get 3 million, upwards of 6 million at one time. Now they're barely getting 1 million. It's terrible.
So what would you? So what would be like? Not to try to make you do a whole TWRP show, but what would be your quick, maybe top 5 fixes that pro wrestling should do so that they can get back to those 6 million numbers?
Well, the first thing that they need to do, number one, is they need to fire Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, because they're pretty much the root of all evil. And they're the two people that are actively doing all they can to ruin pro wrestling, because right now they're bringing two of the most terrible things in pro wrestling, and they're popularizing them amongst all companies. Because unfortunately, it isn't like there used to be, like in the 90s, how companies would try to be different than WWE. Every company tries to be just like WWE nowadays, all these independent wrestling companies. So they all want to have SJW agendas shoved down your throat for the span of 2 hours. But then on top of that, they want to have serious work rate garbage matches, basically matches that look like 20-minute long synchronized Power Ranger fights. They look terrible. They look horrible. It's not fun to watch. It's not even realistic at all. It's boring. It's comical, but not in a good way. It's just, there's so many things that are wrong with their two visions colliding that I would immediately fire those two, get them out of office. You could use a fucking potato and a battery at this point. They would do a better job. So yeah, those two out of office. That would be fix number one. Fix number two, what I would do is I would not listen to the fans, because that has been the biggest problem that WWE has had ever since the advent of social media, is they have, like, obediently listened to the fans to the point that they listen to every single marquee thing that they say, and they make it a reality. The fans wanted all these indie stars who weigh like 180 pounds and are maybe like 5'2", like Rey Mysterio's height. They wanted all these little dudes to be like world champions, top of the line, and all this. And WWE, they're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and do that for you. And what happened? The numbers dropped, because none of the people that they were putting at the top were charismatic stars. They were all athletes that don't know how to cut a promo, don't know how to act, don't know how to emote. They're just boring athletes that do flips and kicks. And that's unfortunately what WWE, through Stephanie and Triple H, Vince was led to believe, is that this is what the fans want to see. So yeah, number one, first and foremost, they cannot listen to the fans. And that goes all across the board. Number three, I made a mention of this about WWE, but this goes across for all social media. Since so many of these wrestlers are active on social media right now, I think more than ever what they need to do is they need to make one company-wide social media account for every single company out there. And if a wrestler has something to say, they do it through that account. Like, they DM that account and then they post for them. They are not allowed to have their own Twitter accounts anymore. I would say, if you want to be on Twitter, you have to be on as your own personal name. You cannot be on as your wrestler name. When you are a wrestler, you play a character. And that would lead right into number four. They need to desperately, desperately bring back kayfabe. And for what kayfabe is, if you don't know, kayfabe is the art of making people think that something is real when it's not. And that's something that a lot of these wrestlers fail at. They can't act, so they can't put over that illusion that they're trying to do. So more than ever, they need to bring back kayfabe, and you got to get rid of social media, which is recommended as part of that. But you also have to make sure that these wrestlers play themselves on TV. Whenever they do news interviews, they play themselves. They shouldn't ever be seen as the real person who they are. That completely shatters the illusion and makes you forget about who you're watching on TV. And the fifth thing that they can do to improve pro wrestling is stop hiring SJW comedy writers as your main writers for your show and start hiring people who actually have proven track records of how to write a good show. Examples would be Vince Russo, Glenn Gilberti, Raven. These are people who know how to write a wrestling show, and you can right away, or you can invest in guys like me. Either way, you're going to get a quality show. So I think with those 5 fixes right there, you might have something.
I like that. I had no idea that Triple H was such a crutch to the
Yes.
business. I was such a
Yes.
big Triple H fan growing up. I thought it was cool that he became like up there in the ranks and stuff. But I guess it's really one of those things. Not every good mechanic should be running the shop. So
Yeah.
I feel that. Another thing you spoke about is the fans. You said that you should stop listening to the fans. And I really don't want to nitpick, but you said that your show, right, coming from a
Hmm.
fan, is trying to critique or sh- give these guys advice on how they can be better. So if they stop listening to the fans, wouldn't that mean that they'll stop listening to you and TWRP as well?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, even if it comes to the fact that they don't listen to us, I mean, granted, we're just another media form out there that is talking about pro wrestling. But even if it comes to the fact that they don't listen to us and they just start internally figuring out these problems and internally figuring out what works, then I'm totally fine with that. I'd be totally fine with today if they never even listened to one of our videos or took our advice. If at the same time they never listened or took the advice of Polana Productions, JD from New York, any of these smarky podcasters who they usually listen to. Don't get me wrong, we have a very small fan base. They do take some of our ideas, but for the most part, for the longest time, they were getting their ideas from a lot of these popular YouTubers who have over 100K viewers. So, or 100K subscribers. So, since they had a bigger fan base, that's who they were listening to and taking their words for gospel. Now they have a voice like ours that's picking up more people are saying what we're saying and really speaking the gospel. So they're starting to listen to us a little bit more. But for the longest time, it wasn't like that, man. They didn't start listening to us till like probably 2019.
Wow. Oh crap. Like you but you also don't think like maybe like like when I was in not maybe as hard as you guys or Dan was, but like when I was into like the Attitude Era, right? And then like I actually remember the moment I left WWE. I remember I showed up late to an episode of Raw, and I went on, and I remember the first thing I saw was John Cena, and he had like this big chain, I guess, like a chain you put like around your bike, and with like a master lock as like around his neck. And then I saw that and I was like, yeah, this is over. Like, yeah, we're not gonna get back to the Austin 316 days anymore. And then I saw that, and then I let go of wrestling, and then I'll tune in to here and there, whatever the buzz is about. But I just felt like it was just because like I outgrew it. So like even now, like when I watch wrestling now, like when I watch the old fights, I see it as corny. I really do. But at the same time, I'm also a 27-year-old man that watches anime, so it's like it's not a problem for me because I get it's storytelling. So I
Right.
guess like you don't think like maybe that's just what it is. Like we just outgrew the imagination, and now we just see for what it is, and it's maybe it's because I don't know about the storytelling. Like you were talking about the writing that it was shit. Maybe the writing is bad, but then I don't even remember WWE/WWF having great writing. I think all the epic times that we remember was the times that wasn't scripted.
Well, my personal opinion, as far as the good writing goes, that came in like the Attitude Era, like 96 to 2000. That's when you were seeing the good writing across the board and a lot of the good angles happening, a lot of good storylines happening. And it had to do with who they had in charge at the time and who was conceiving these angles, these storylines. You had people like Vince Russo, people like Jim Cornette, people like Paul Heyman, who all at one time understood how to write a wrestling show, but also put in elements from pop culture to make it so that it wasn't just for this insulated pro wrestling crowd, that it also reached out to people from other mediums and said, hey, check me out. Look at this. And a lot of what they did is they tapped into kind of like the Jerry Springer culture at the time, which was a
Yeah.
lot of Crash TV. So whether you're watching ECW or WWF, you were going to see a lot of blood, a lot of violence, a lot of girls wearing skimpy clothes. And I guess what I mean by good writing, I don't necessarily mean well crafted storylines. Like, don't get me wrong, there were a lot of really good, well crafted storylines. Like, my favorite was Vince McMahon versus Steve Austin of
Yeah.
all time. That's like an amazing storyline.
Oh yeah.
But I personally think for the most part, it was just taking the actors that you had at your disposal and finding the best roles for them and finding the best ways to utilize them. And they didn't have to worry about offending a wrestler back then because it was a very different structure. It was well known back in WWF, you did not complain, you did what they asked, or you were fired. So since Vince had that stronghold over it and he wasn't corporately tied, it was a lot more of a wild, wild west before they got on the stock market. Before that, they were able to do a lot more with what they could put on TV and what they could show. And after they got on the stock market, it was immediately like a PG switch. And they started
Mhm.
changing the writing direction. They started changing storylines, angles, started hiring a different type of wrestler. Like, and it all ties together. It's like you got to compare the reasons why wrestling is so corny nowadays. It's because, for one, they hire SJW cut comedy writers who
Mhm.
do not understand pro wrestling and they try to write it. Like, recently, one of the writers was on a radio show and they asked her the name of the most popular wrestler and she said Bobby Ashley. And the champion's name is Bobby Lashley. So that made her look
Mhm.
like a fool right there. So they fired her ass. But that was just a perfect example of the type of people who they're hiring. They don't know anything about pro wrestling and they're hired strictly for diversity points. And to me, that is just, that's a malarkey, you know. And especially the fact that ever since Stephanie McMahon has been in control, creative control, she has steered away WWE from being a male driven show, which it has always been, and has started infusing a lot of feminist agendas into it. And to me, you don't take something that was made for men, like pro wrestling, and feminize the fuck out of it. That to me is like asking to ruin a franchise. And that's what she's effectively done. That's what Marvel is doing right now. You're seeing it all across the board. Star Wars, every single major franchise is being affected drastically by feminism, destroyed even. And with WWE, I think it's even more apparent just because of the goofy comedy that they try to put on, but it's not funny. It's just silly, stupid slapstick bullshit, like worse than SNL, like really awful. So
Yeah.
you have these terrible acting, terrible storylines, terrible angles. Just it really is. It's just a shit experience, even compared to like the PG era, like early fucking 2008. Like, even compared to that, it's just complete fucking unwatchable garbage. So I don't blame you for thinking it's cheesy. I would too.
Yeah, like, and it's like even stuff that, like, like the pipe bomb, that was a little bit like not recent now, but like it was a little bit after, that was way after I stopped watching, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But then, like, it had me thinking of one. I really thought CM Punk was gonna join the Kiss My Ass Club. That was the first thing I thought of. I was like, yo, this dude's gonna kiss Vince McMahon's bare ass. This is gonna be great. And then he didn't do that, and I respect him for all that. Like, I get it, corporate stuff and Me Too movements and all that stuff. I feel that. But I felt like even that scripted was really underwhelming. Like,
Yeah.
with everything that was happening too, like, what CM Punk was doing, quote unquote, it was very lackluster, Even after everything, I think like CM Punk came back, I think, and then he like lost like all those, like, I don't think he even won, and then he fought against John Cena again for the title thing, and then he lost that to the dude from Money in the Bank, and then John Cena got that back. So, like, it all made no sense to me. It didn't feel, I didn't really understand. Like, I remember after the Vince McMahon and Stone Cold story, right? Like, there was like an ominous feeling after that. Like, yo, like, Stone Cold runs this shit. Like, you wasn't showing Vince and Stone Cold together no more, You wasn't, they weren't even in the same room for a while. It was like it was such an impact, for a long time. Like, I even remember, which I still can't find this fucking clip, but I remember when Stone Cold came back. Remember when he got hit by the car, and then he came back and he started beating up everybody because he didn't know who hit him with the car, so he was gonna fuck up everybody. And then he went into the Rock's locker room, right? And then he looked at the Rock, and they had like this fucking stare down. And I remember me being a fucking kid, I was like, yo, they're about to go fucking at it, bro. WrestleMania again. This is gonna be great. And then they just gave each other a pound, and he was like, yo, I knew it wasn't you, Like, that spoke so much into the entire story of WWE and what they've been doing this entire time. You know, like the wars,
Yes.
the gladiator matches. So I feel that, which is again, like I bring that back up to CM Punk. He met up again with John Cena. Mm, I don't know. Like I even think there was even a little segment where CM Punk was like an announcer. And I was like, what the fuck is going on, bro? Like, you were a terrorist. You were the Antifa of the WWE for a short moment in time. And now you're sitting next to King Jerry Lawler, whatever the fuck his name is, talking about, oh, yeah, that was a good kick. What? Like, I'm like, I thought you wanted ice cream bars. I thought you told Vince you want a yacht, you know? Like, you could have done that. You could have done that without doing anything. So I understand the storylining, and I get where it's just like fast. You know, it's very fast paced. You know, forget about that. It didn't happen. It's really over with. So I can feel that, and I guess I feel like how does the kids feel? Like like I don't have any kids. So I really don't even know. But like I wonder how does the kids feel about wrestling? Because a lot of
Well,
kids I know they don't even watch wrestling. They watch
I don't
anime.
blame them. I don't blame them, and they well, I mean, for example, my daughter, she cannot stand pro wrestling. She'll sit and watch it with us and make fun of it, but for the most part, like we try taking her to a live event, she can't stand that shit. But that's like most of her age group, though. Like I will say that they do. A lot of them do like anime. Anime is a lot more popular than you think, but pro wrestling is fucking dead. It's deader than disco right now for all age groups.
And I would always say, like, I will always tell people, like, and I even told Dan, I was like, as a kid, I thought pro wrestling was so cool. Like, I knew it was fake. Like, I wasn't those kids that thought it was real. Like, I always knew it was fake, but I loved it because it was the closest thing we ever had to live action anime. Like the WWE franchise in itself is its own anime. It has horrific deaths, crazy ass plot twists, crazy storylines with the fucking Chris Benoit alone. Like it gets really twisted on the personal thing. And I loved it. I thought it was great as a kid. And every time I tell that to kids and they look at me and then they put on a scene and they go, "You think this is like anime?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think this it's like anime. I don't know what this is. I have no idea." But like so I feel like it's weird. I feel like maybe I don't know. I feel like as the WWE as a billion-dollar company, I would expect them to have more effects. Like we should be doing more I don't know, like fake error back. Like we should be making it a show more than just people putting their lives on the line. Like I saw that Undertaker documentary, and I thought it was wild how Undertaker was still mad fucking old, and he was still like running his body through the fucking bricks. Just and there were and there was like no plan. There was no, hey, this is how we get him ready. This is how we get him fixed. We got the smartest doctors. We got all this crazy ass things that hold him up, or nothing like that. It was all, yeah, just do it until you die.
Yeah, pretty much. It's sad. I mean, and that's unfortunately how it was for a lot of pro wrestlers. Is they got ran into the ground. And I know the storyline that you were talking about earlier was CM Punk. That was back when WWE was going on strike, so they had a bunch of the wrestlers walk out, and all they had left
Wow.
was like CM Punk, John Cena, and Sheamus. And then Triple H was like, "So you want to step in there?" And he's like, "Oh, can I wear your jacket too?" "Sure thing." So he goes and he puts on the jacket and he's sitting at ringside Indian style calling this match. And you're thinking to
Mm,
yourself, okay, here was the guy who was just a couple weeks ago telling
yes.
WWE to fuck off, and he's doing this shit. Like, what the hell?
Yes. Putting
And
on
even, and
Paul's
even,
blazer. Remember when he was calling him Paul? And then now
that's
you're
right.
putting on his blazer? What the fuck?
Yes. Yes. So even like yeah, like shit like that. But even like with Stone Cold, when you're talking about that, how he was like at the top of the company, and then he came back for a little bit, and then they did jack shit with him. A lot of that had to do with the fact that he had contract issues going on at the moment, and he wasn't talking with Vince. They weren't talking to each other. It was very angry on both sides. So just to have the deal that they're going with right now, they've kind of smoothed things over for money's sake. But for a while there, they did not like each other.
Really?
Yeah.
So like a lot of these people didn't like Vince. I always think like they were just all fake. I thought it was like because I remember that time that big ass jumbotron fell on Vince, and then they all ran to help him. I don't know if that was real or fake, but if it was fake, wow, I believed it. But
Yeah.
27 years old, and I thought that shit was wow real. I was like, oh my god, Vince is in an accident. Like, cause
Yeah.
it was like on the news like that night too. I was like, holy shit, this has to be real. But damn, Vince is mad smart. But you know, like I saw that scene and they were all helping him, and I don't know if Stone Cold was there, but I remember I was like, oh shit, they all gotta just be friends. Like they all gotta love Vince. You know, they all Vince gave them all $1 million. You know, like they all made them rich. So I had no idea that they actually had like legitimate beef. Like you know, I knew the dude that oh my god, and I'm so sorry for not knowing his name, but the dude that was a part of the something something screwdriver. I knew he had real beef because I saw that documentary on the Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, I mean, you go down the list. There's so many wrestlers, past and present, that have beef with Vince. I mean, even to this day, because about a month ago they released a bunch of wrestlers as part of cutbacks, and a lot of them were talking shit about WWE, and that's just something that there's a lot of people out there, a lot of jaded veterans that didn't get a Legends contract, that didn't get a shot at something to make some money, so they talk shit about Vince.
Oh, and that obviously gets them an easy million dollar check because you're talking about a billionaire. I don't know if he is a billionaire, but if he is, then that's an easy multi-millionaire person. So I feel that 100%. Since we are speaking about Vince, I do have a question on how do you feel about him personally? Because I am a fan of remember that diva Ashley that she committed suicide and all that stuff, and I followed her story and I found out like a lot of shady shit that Vince was like in the back of. So like I'm like hearing like a lot of these Me Too's about Vince and all that stuff. Like, what's your take on the Hammer?
Vince is he's a neutral to me right now, and don't get me wrong, like I really respected this guy for a while. I think he did a lot to make pro wrestling popular, make it a household name, and if it weren't for him it would be in some carnival sideshow. So
Hmm.
I respect him a lot for that, but at the same time I lost a lot of respect for him with how much he's let his daughter and his son-in-law completely wreck his company and destroy it, to the point that they're trying to sell off active assets right now. There's people in our comments that are like, they're not that good. They're not going to sell. What are you talking about? And I'm saying to myself, nah, dude. Usually, when they start settling lawsuits and they start consolidating, that's the number one thing, the number one red flag you can see from a company that is going to be sold. So I still think that before the end of this year, WWE is going to undergo another big sell. I mean, just look at the fact that they already sold their whole entire streaming rights to Peacock. That's
Oh
huge. Their
wow.
entire streaming library is now on Peacock. So the WWE network is no more. And this happened this year. So for them to think that a sell is not possible, they're shitting themselves because NBC, they even got in on a piece of that pie. They could very well buy the last big piece. So I think that that's something that you have to consider. I mean, I do respect Vince for his business decisions and making the most he can out of a dwindling asset. But at the same time, I lost a lot of respect for him for just letting his vision go to shit. And in turn, letting the whole landscape of pro wrestling go to shit because Vince, whether people want to say it or not, he's still incredibly influential. And the vision that he has is the vision that a lot of other companies copy off of and share. So I think that wrestling is going to hurt a lot if Vince McMahon leaves. Even at his weakened state, even at this weakened cuck state that he's currently in, I think
Hmm.
that wrestling will be severely damaged beyond the point of return if he leaves.
So you're saying how it might be brought on. You said NBC. Honestly, I wouldn't see. I could see Disney buying WWE.
Could be.
I mean, they bought everything else. That's actually the one thing that they're actually missing in their little utopia of entertainment is a pro wrestling field. And since
Yeah, you know
everything,
what? That was one of the buyers that I was predicting for a while was actually Disney. So I very well think that that could be a possibility in due time.
yeah, or maybe I don't know. Maybe Peacock may buy them. I don't know who owns Peacock. I know Peacock's
NBC.
NBC. Oh shit. Yeah, so it might be NBC too. Yeah, that's a way better idea. Take back everything I said. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing. Now we are coming up short, so I do have one last question because I know we've talked a whole bunch about YouTube, about TWRP, about wrestling, and I know you guys just don't do wrestling. I know you guys are part of another branch. I know you guys are the partners of the VOP, and I've we barely cross paths on the VOP table. So I really just would like to ask you on just your point of view on what the world is on, or like just what is your point of view, and what are some solutions that you can think of that can help your point of view, not the world, not Palestine, just what you see, what you experience, what are the problems there, and what are some easy solutions that the people around you can obviously fix.
Well, I let's not sugarcoat anything. The world is incredibly fucked up right now, and you'd be a fool to deny that. There's a lot of terror going around. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of people suffering. There's a lot of shit going on that people don't know about. For people that think they know how bad the world is, no, you do not even know how bad things can get or are going to get. And all I can say right now is the best thing you can do to prevent the negativity storm coming your way, prevent all the terrible fear porn that they're going to try to put at you. What you can do to prevent that is really just do all you can to spread the truth. Do all you can to awaken as many people as possible. And whether that be your friends, your family, anybody in your communities, hobbies, whatever you can do to wake a person up, please do so. And don't go ahead and jam it down their throats. That's one thing that I've learned over my time is that if you're going to try to break somebody into some sort of information that's going to be impactful for them and is really going to hit them hard, you need to seep it in. You need to breadcrumb it, much like the Illuminati has done with their steps towards world domination. They breadcrumbed it. You need to breadcrumb people to the point that they understand where you're coming from. Give them bigger breadcrumbs at a time, and each time they're going to gain a little bit more information, and they're going to understand where you're coming from. And from there, all it really takes is just patience and hoping that your idea gets through to them, and they tell a friend, that friend tells a friend, and so on and so on. So it's all about just not being afraid to share the truth about what's going on out there, especially if you do have knowledge about what's going on out there. And don't ever stop learning. A lot of people get complacent, they get lazy, and they stop taking the steps necessary to gain the knowledge necessary to survive in this up and coming world we're emerging. And more than anything, you need to know what's around you. You need to know what to look for, and you need to be educated. Do all you can to educate yourself and educate others. And that's my final word.
Oh man, you gotta get the air. Jesus, my man, what a way to close it out. And I have to say, this was an amazing time. I had a great time with you. I hope you felt the same.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was a great time. Thank you for having me.
Nah, man, yo, anytime, man. And the invitation goes out to JC too. I don't want to feel like I didn't want to interview him. That was what I meant, but I forgot to tell you like JC as well. When I was like, I'll just do NC now, and then I'll do NC and JC again later, I guess. So I'm very sorry for JC. I did not ignore him. I apologize. I suck.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I'll see him tomorrow, so I'll go ahead and pass along the message, and hopefully we can get him on here sometime.
no, yeah, 100%. Everybody, that is Sage session. You guys just had a session with Sage. It was pretty fun. Check out TWRP show. You guys had you said you're doing just do your quick plug.
Okay, so if you guys haven't had a chance, go ahead and check out Patreon. We got Top 10 Sucks on Firefly Funhouse up on Patreon, and we're going to put it out on TWRP MISC on Monday evening, so check out that. And also, right now on TWRP MISC, we got a Smart Theater. It's been a long time since I posted that, so go ahead and check that out. And finally, last plug, tomorrow night, we're doing Money in the Stank. Check us out on YouTube. We're going to be doing a live show starting at about 4 o'clock PST, so make sure you check that out. And other than that, we're good to go, brother.
All right, everybody, man. Everybody, I'll see you guys later. You guys just been saged. Have a